There is a kind of farm where the crop swims, the irrigation never shuts off, and the harvest actively fights back. Trout farms, spring-fed raceways carved into a hillside, ponds full of rainbows, a farmhouse close enough to hear the water, and a business that sells dinner and childhood memories out of the same building. Every so often, one of these places comes up for sale, and on paper it looks like the perfect escape. Live on the land, feed the fish, sell the fish, repeat until happy. At least, that is what we thought when we set out to find 5 trout farms you could actually buy. Then we started pulling listings, and the market ate most of them while we were still taking notes. Today, 5 former trout farms, what they sold for, who really bought them, and the one that is still sitting there waiting, if you move fast and read the fine print. Let's get into it. So how does a farm full of fish vanish from the market faster than a lakefront cabin? The answer lives in Idaho. The Hagerman Valley along the Snake River grows roughly 70% of the farm trout in America because cold spring water pours out of the canyon walls there at a constant temperature all year long. And back in 2012, a group of Idaho groundwater districts paid $34 million for 3 trout farms in that valley. They did not want the fish. They wanted the water rights underneath the fish. That is the secret of this entire category. A trout farm is really a bundle of cold, clean, first-use spring water that happens to have rainbows swimming in it, and water like that is the scarcest thing in rural real estate. So when a trout farm hits the market, the fish are the least valuable thing on the deed, and the buyers who show up are often not farmers at all. And it also explains why running one is so hard. A trout needs cold water, moving water, and oxygen every hour of every day, forever. One clogged intake on a hot afternoon can kill a year of inventory before dinner. So the families who run these farms tend to run them until they physically cannot. And then the water gets sold to whoever understands what it is really worth. Keep that in mind because it explains every single property you are about to see. Now, if you want a real plan instead of getting burned on your next big, unique property buy, scan the QR code and take a look at the Unique Property Buyer's Handbook. It's a step-by-step guide for ordinary people like us. Where to actually find these places, how to spot the hidden flaws that turn a bargain into a money pit, how to finance the stuff banks won't touch, and how to buy it without getting taken. Catching just one hidden flaw pays for the guide 100 times over. Plus the direct links to the government auctions and tax sales most people never find. Links in the description. Property number 1, the Bucksnort Trout Farm in McEwen, Tennessee. Yes, Bucksnort. The name alone is worth the drive. This place sits in the wooded hills of Hickman County, less than an hour west of Nashville, just off the interstate, and it has been a beloved fishing hub since the middle of the 1960s. Families pulled off the highway, handed a kid a rod, and drove home with dinner and a story. Half of Middle Tennessee seems to have caught their first fish here. 72 acres in total, with an on-site hatchery, 1,800 feet of spring-fed concrete raceways stepping fish up through every stage of growth, and a half-acre pond where the big mature trout cruised around like they owned the place. The spring behind all of it pushes out roughly 2,000 gallons of clean water every minute, and the property also carries about 4,000 feet of frontage on crystal clear Sugar Creek. For living quarters, you got a 3-bedroom farmhouse, a large barn, and an office building with an apartment upstairs for whoever draws the short straw during spawning season. Raceways like these are the whole trick of trout farming, by the way. Gravity pulls fresh spring water down through each concrete channel in sequence. The fish get a river that never floods and never runs dry, and the farmer gets to walk his entire crop in rubber boots. When the concrete is sound, you are looking at infrastructure that would cost a fortune to pour today. The asking price was $420,000, which for a working hatchery with a house, a barn, and its own private creek is the kind of number that makes you check the listing twice. Plenty of people did. For a while, the comment sections of local fishing forums read like a wake, full of grown adults mourning a pond. Bucksnort sold. And here is the detail that everyone missed at the time. A spring that strong on 72 acres is valuable whether or not a single fish ever swims there again, which means the buyer may have wanted land and water, not fish chores. The farm itself sits quietly on the Hickman County tax record with a new name attached, and we will come back to why that matters. Property number 2, the Silver Springs Trout Farm outside Montrose, Colorado. If Bucksnort was the folksy roadside version, this was the professional one. 36 acres a few minutes from town, and it was not a former trout farm at all. It was operating and producing income the day it listed. Productive springs gave the property first-use water, which is the phrase that makes fish farmers go quiet with envy. First use means the water comes out of the ground and touches your fish before it touches anyone else's. So it arrives cold, clean, and carrying no diseases from a neighbor upstream. The setup ran from an on-site hatchery to fingerling tanks to full fish runs, with shops, a water management system, and fenced pasture ready for livestock on the side. The manager's home was a renovated 4-bedroom of about 2,500 square feet, and there were 3 recreational ponds for the days you wanted to catch fish instead of counting them. The price was just under $1.5 million, and somehow it gets simpler from there, because that number tells you exactly what a turnkey trout operation is worth. You are paying land money for the acreage, house money for the home, and then a healthy premium for water that behaves. It's sold anyway. And if you are wondering what you would even check before buying a place like this, the list is short and brutal. Verify the spring's flow in the driest month on record, not the wettest. Verify the water right is deeded and senior, because a junior right in the American West is a promise someone else gets to break. And verify the fish health paperwork, because one bad inspection can lock your gates for a season. The lesson here is not that you missed it. The lesson is that when a genuinely working trout farm surfaces, the market treats it like a live grenade with a deed attached. And hesitation is how you end up watching the video instead of feeding the fish. Property number 3, the old trout farm of Hampton, Tennessee. Head into the mountains of East Tennessee on the main road out to Watauga Lake, and you pass a property that its own listing could only describe as a storied historic trout farm brimming with character and boundless potential. Translation: the water still runs, but nothing else does. It was offered as is, with an open invitation to either restore its legacy or reimagine it entirely, sitting on a stretch of highway with steady traffic rolling past toward the lake. For a certain kind of buyer, that is the dream ticket. Dead raceways you can bring back one channel at a time, a location that markets itself, and a price of admission set by a seller who mostly wants the problem gone. But before anyone could grade it, the listing simply vanished. No sold banner, no pending note, just gone from the commercial listing sites like it was never there. That happens constantly in this category, and it is not always a sale. Rural sellers pull listings when they get tired, when winter comes, when a nephew says he might want it. And understand what as is means when the asset is water. You would be reopening every question the original owner already answered decades ago. Does the water right still attach to the parcel? Does the state still honor the old discharge permit for water leaving the raceways? Is the spring box intact or full of 50 years of gravel? None of that is a reason to walk away. It is the reason the price of places like this gets negotiated in person on a tailgate instead of on a website. So this one becomes your homework assignment. The parcel still sits in the Carter County records. The owner still gets mail, and a polite letter asking whether the trout farm might still be available is a one-stamp lottery ticket. Somebody is going to send that letter. It costs almost nothing to make sure that somebody is you. Property number 4, the Chalke Valley Trout Farm in Bower Chalke, England. Southwest of Salisbury, in a green valley threaded with chalk streams so clear they look photoshopped, sits a former commercial hatchery that spent decades raising trout and is now, in the cold language of the listing, redundant. Sit with that word for a second. Somebody built this place trough by trough, fed fish here through decades of freezing mornings, and the market's final verdict on all that work is redundant. What remains is genuinely lovely. A 5-bedroom bungalow with 1,600 square feet of living space, almost 7 acres of pasture screened by mature trees, extensive hatchery buildings with troughs and external tanks, earth ponds for growing fish on, and boreholes feeding cold water through the whole system. The guide price was £785, call it roughly $1 million, which for the Chalke Valley is startlingly cheap. The catch is a single line in the paperwork. The house carries an agricultural occupancy tie, meaning the person living there must be working or have worked in agriculture. That one clause quietly deletes most of the buyer pool, and it is exactly the kind of hidden flaw that either ruins your purchase or hands you a discount, depending on which side of it your life happens to fall. Offers went to best and final in the middle of January, and the sale is now agreed. From redundant to gone in a matter of weeks, which tells you the buyers understood the same thing the Idaho water districts understood. The troughs may be empty, but boreholes into a chalk aquifer in one of the most protected valleys in England are never, ever redundant. Property number 5, Brick Farm Lakes in Hurstmonceux, East Sussex, and this is the one you can still buy. 50 acres of rolling countryside in an official area of outstanding natural beauty with 4 spring and stream-fed trout lakes covering about 6 acres of water, 52 fishing pegs on wooden jetties, and a genuinely beautiful oak-framed lodge at the center with a commercial kitchen, a bar, and a log burner for the winter anglers. The fishery runs as a real business, selling day tickets, coaching, food, and corporate events, with approved consent for glamping pods on top. The guide price is just under £1.3 million, around $1.6 million. Now the fine print, and there are 2 items. First, there is no house. Planning permission for a 3-bedroom dwelling behind the lodge was approved years ago and has since lapsed, so a new owner starts that conversation with the council from scratch. Second, the fishery itself is let to tenants on a business lease running to 2034, with a break clause in 2029. In other words, on day 1 you are buying a landlord's seat, not a fishing rod. You collect rent, you negotiate, you wait. That will scare off the dreamers, which is precisely why it is still available. For the patient buyer, it is 50 acres of protected English countryside with income attached, and every flaw already printed in the brochure, and in this category, known flaws are a luxury. Your day 1 plan writes itself. Talk to the tenants, since they may want to sell you the business or renew for years, and either way, you should know before you offer. Then start the planning conversation about the house, because the council already said yes once, and a fresh application for the same modest dwelling is a far easier fight than a cold one. So here is the verdict. In fifth place, Hampton, because a vanished listing is a mystery, not an opportunity, until your letter says otherwise. Fourth, Silver Springs, the best pure trout farm on this list and the most thoroughly gone. Third, Bucksnort, the heartbreaker, a working hatchery with a house at a price we may not see again. Second, Chalke Valley, because agreed sales do sometimes fall through, and a call asking to be the backup buyer costs you nothing but pride. Which leaves Brick Farm Lakes at the top of the board, and let me be honest about why. It does not win on charm. Bucksnort wins on charm in a walk. It wins the only category that matters. It wins because it exists. It is real, it is buyable this month. The income is already flowing, and its two problems are sitting in plain sight where you can price them. Everything else on this list was better on paper and gone in practice. In most property categories, the winner is the best deal. In trout farms, the winner is whichever one is still for sale when you finally pick up the phone. That is the whole lesson of this category, written in cold spring water. Trout farms are not rare because nobody wants them. They are rare because everybody with a checkbook and a well-drilling company wants what is underneath them, and those buyers do not browse. They pounce. Before we wrap up, one last reminder. The Unique Property Buyer's Handbook and the QR code walks you through the whole journey, from finding a place to moving in, and hands you the direct links to the auctions most people never find. Everything you need to finally own a place that's truly one of a kind. Links in the description. So here is the question we argued about all week. The gate opens tomorrow and one of these 5 is yours. Do you keep the fish and run it as a business? Or do you drain the raceways, stock one pond for yourself, and just live beside the water? Drop your pick and your plan in the comments, because the answers to this one are always better than the video.